whatnot. We're probably about 10 seconds behind the stream. So what people are seeing is it's taken a while for it to get up. Can you still hear me, Mark?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Awesome. Um, let me see here. I'm going to go ahead and post this on. Boo, boo, boo. Internet.
Just gonna run and grab some glasses. Hang on. Good lunch.
It is a snack. I didn't. I was getting going doing a bunch of different things, and I wasn't conscious of the fact that I might be giving myself low blood sugar.
Right. Important detail.
Hold on a second. Let me see here. Let me get the chat pop out up. Testing 1 2. Mark, can you give me some audio?
Yeah. So here we are from Guelph, Ontario. Do I need to be closer to my iPhone?
No, I think we're good. I might be dominating the audio here with my big mic. So I'm going to just to cut down on bandwidth. I'm going to turn my camera feed off to you. Can you handle not seeing this much handsomeness for the interview?
I can handle
Why
it.
did you laugh so hard at that? That's borderline insulting. Hold on a second. Okay, hold on, because I'm gonna record my handsomeness on the thing here.
So when people ask questions, do we see them? Are they video as well? Or are they just chat?
You're not gonna see them unless you pull up the stream, which I don't recommend doing because because you'll get all kinds of crazy feedback and stuff.
Okay.
I'll put my stupid head down here and then zoom in. Pull that up so I can see my. So we got people on. Who's in the test or who's in the chat? Okay, so I got live chat going. So, do you know Grace from Guelph Guitar Repair? Have you met her?
Oh yeah, I've known Grace for years.
I sure do like her.
Yeah, she's fun for sure.
Um,
You had her on like a couple months ago or something, right?
I did. I did an interview with her, and it was just awesome. Like it's it's pretty cool getting everybody going on here and kind of getting stuff from a broad spectrum of angles. It's the blessing and the curse of guitar repair, and in essence, there are no rules, so everybody's coming at it from different angles, and it's always good to see how, especially this next generation of Luthers that are being brought up in the age of the internet, where there's a lot of information out there. I don't know if
Sure.
if you remember what it was like trying to wrestle with these things with Hideo Kamamoto's book and Teeter's book.
Oh, it was ridiculous. Yeah, I mean, I think the internet would save somebody 100 refresh.
Yeah.
You know,
it seems like it. There's still something to the feel of it though. Like my refrets are so much by feel right now. I don't, like I'm starting to maybe write a little book on some practical touch up advice for guitar repair, and
right.
when I think about writing a, a fretting book, I'm like, well, you push the fret in, and then when it feels right, like, and you see a little bit of
Yeah,
barb, but not too much barb sticking up, and then I'm like, what? How would I ever come
I,
up with anything useful for anybody on that?
yeah. It's more just a tricks of the trade kind of thing.
Yeah, let me
You
see.
know, I mean, there's so much feel. Fretwork is such feel. You know, it took me. I don't know. It took me a year just to figure out what hammer I like to use.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah. I switched. I've been pressing a lot now,
Yeah.
um, but I started out with a little brass and plastic pea shooter from Stumac that I think a lot of people use. And then when I went into the
Yeah.
guitar factory, they handed me this giant dead blow hammer, and I
Oh
was
yeah.
like, there's no way I'm ever going to fret with that. And
Yeah.
it took a while, but eventually I got it. The thing was, is it had worn, the plastic had kind of worn into the
Yeah.
radius of the fret. It was so
Right.
large that it almost acted like a call in its own
For sure.
way. But then when I came out of the factory, I didn't have that, and it was a real specific dead blow hammer. Like I had gotten so used to it that like going and grabbing one of those orange ones from Home Depot or whatever just wouldn't have
Yeah.
been work. So I had to transition back to the pea shooter, and it took a
It's
long
it's
time.
true. I started with one of those.
Yeah, I think that's a good.
And
I think that's a good. I think that's as good as anything, right? Like,
it was. This is the problem is that I realized after lots of boinging fret ends that this didn't work for me.
yeah,
And I use. I have like a first generation one of these. This is my new one for my home shop, but
yeah,
I'm just so used to this end now that, and
yeah,
just the weight of it,
yeah.
feel, it's just all I use at this point.
Yeah, that's the one I grew up on. I have the first generation of that too. I don't know if that's still available. With a lot of the StewMac stuff, those are repurposed
Yeah,
from other industries. It would be interesting to figure
that's
out
right.
where that's from. Um,
Yeah.
so I want to say hello to Jeff Keynes, Jonathan Radford, Grace is in the chat. Grace says hi. She must have her ears must have been burning. We were talking about her. Can somebody just like tell me if the audio is good on this? And Danny West is here. Maxie's here. Um, the age of learning how to split screen, a neck reset, and kittens on turntables. I don't know what that means, but I like it. It ought to be in a song. So we had some people do some pregame questions. So I thought we'd blow through some of those really quick.
Sure.
Um, do 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 do. Um,
So are we live? Is
We
the
we
world
we're
the
live. Yeah,
screen?
we've got Tyler Geske is saying hi. He's out in Seattle, I think. Tyler, what shop are you working out of? There's like a 40-second delay, so when I
There's no way for me to see the chat comments.
you could if you had a laptop, you
Okay.
could pop it open, and as long as you muted the mic, I think we'd be good.
I don't have my computer near me. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
I'll rely on you to translate.
So we did one of the questions just as I'm getting these loaded up here. One of the questions was the left-handedness of your personality there, and getting
Yeah.
getting working in a right-handed world. Do you ever feel like Moses, like not being included in the promised land, like you do all this work and then you don't, and then you're just like standing there kind of looking over the mountain landscape and going, boy. Or do you just flip it? Do you have any like chops, like grabbing a right-handed guitar upside down and ripping away? Or you?
Yeah. No. I think the left-handedness thing uh, informed. Maybe that's not the right word. The left-handed thing really created the path for me to get into guitar repair and guitar building. I got into guitar building because as a teenager, I kept ordering left-handed guitars, free internet, just ordering new guitars lefty, uh, and then paying in full for them, and then I would receive them, and then I would not necessarily like those guitars, and before the internet came around, it was really impossible to sell a left-handed guitar, and so I would lose my shirt every time, whether it was a Strat or some Taylor Rosewood Dreadnought or some Martin D18 or something. I would order them all, and then just that wasn't the guitar for me. And so I decided that I would learn how to build guitars, and I would start. It was a very naive plan, but to start a left-handed guitar building company, and so that people could have a left-handed guitar that they can keep in their store. And of course, now as a store owner, I'm very well aware that people have to choose to buy those left-handed guitars. It doesn't matter if they're available. But at that point, that was my whole MO. And I went and learned how to build guitars when I finished university when I was 23. And that's what got me into this whole world. And so I built a left-handed guitar, and then quickly realized when I started actually trying to get work as a guitar builder that there wasn't any, and so I just started building guitars and doing guitar repair, and I discovered quickly that I prefer guitar repair over guitar building. And so now I'm a left-handed guy who fixes guitars, but I play, I have a few licks that I can do upside down to test the guitar out. But I certainly do play left-handed guitar. But I'll tell you that as a lefty, when I finish a guitar, I don't get lost in the muse of the guitar. Like when I'm playtesting it, I'm not playing music. I'm just sampling. I'm testing out the functionality and the tone of the guitar with from a non-musical point of view, just so I can see how it works and make sure that it works, and I can actually test the tone without getting lost in the music. If you know what I mean?
Yeah,
so it actually helps a lot.
yeah. It is that is something that I don't really struggle with it much myself, but I did in my younger days of like the fine line between testing and noodling. It definitely comes up, and not that there isn't time to noodle in a guitar repair shop, but Tyler is from Emerald City Guitars in Seattle. I don't know if you're familiar with them,
Hey
but
there.
let's see here. So bear with me. I gotta do some resizing of something really quick. This is driving me crazy.
Sure.
Oh my god, I'm so so terrible at the tech end of this thing, but so getting back to the questions.
Yeah.
Paul M was wondering about refret tips and orders of operation, favorite fingerboard finishes. Let's start with the fretting thing. Are you an oil guy? Are you a wax guy on the fingerboard? What's your? I just got done with this and I'm ready to close the case on it and send it to the customer. What's your preferred fingerboard treatment after?
There's a couple things I use this stuff a lot. The hydrate from Planet Waves, and then I actually will buff my fingerboard on my buffer. I've got a buffing wheel that's all gross and black, and it's great for getting a final finish on your fingerboard, particularly on vintage guitars where you want to have that sort of oil burnished look to things.
Yeah, I think that's a good move. I like that, and it seems to impart some of the wax from the compound to the board too, which I think is good for kind of cutting down on some of that humidification.
Something else that's really good. This is a brand new. These are brand new frets in this fingerboard, and on a vintage guitar, to get if you're doing on a Brazilian rosewood guitar, when you're all finished, I will often take a little gauze pad, like this kind of gauze pad, with some acetone on it, and I'll wipe the board with acetone. Not drippy wet, obviously, because you don't want to get that on the finish or the binding. And if you have big celluloid inlays, it's a different story. But if you have a pearl inlaid guitar, wipe it with acetone, and it brings a lot of the old color back into the wood. I'm not up on the chemistry of that, but it makes a new fingerboard look a little older, which is nice. And even on celluloid inlays, if you brush your acetone just quickly like this, like on the Les Paul or something, you'll develop some of that sort of shiny patina that you get from years of playing on acetone inlays as well.
I'll
You can
have-
do that with color too. You can tint your acetone and make your inlays look more old that way too.
yeah,
So
because
that's the thing I do at the end also.
that's awesome. That yeah, that little, one of the things when I'm dealing with like gretsch binding is it's nice to try to get, if I'm going to all the trouble to color the side of the binding, and then the
Yeah,
top of the binding is not colored,
that's
it
right.
looks a little goofy. So yeah, getting some of that, like impregnating it with dyes,
That's right.
with the solvent as a vehicle for that is pretty awesome tip. I've never
I'll
thought
show you
about
one other
doing
thing.
I've never thought about doing that on celluloid though, for the inlays being kind of having the
That's a magic trick for sure. On vintage, you're doing like an ES 175 or something, and you've just done a refret, and all your inlays are like glowing, and they don't have that beautiful vintage patina. A little vintage amber, a little acetone,
yeah
you're done.
yeah
It's so fast and so effective. It's great. Just
was
it
it
can't
was
be
it
soaking wet, and you only get one chance because if you run it over a second time with your acetone, it's just gonna pull the old stuff off.
yeah
That's the one trick. I'll show you one other thing. This is one of my favorite fret little things that I discovered. So this little tool here I use on every refret. This is a Bishop Cochran Dremel base with just the cheapest Dremel 100 one-speed router
uh-huh
on here. And this thing, every time I do a refret, I want consistency in the fret slots.
yeah
And I wanted to make sure that my fret slots are deep enough and that they're free of nastiness. And so I don't know if you can see the little tiny bit that's in there. Maybe I'll just hang tight. I'll just grab one. One second.
okay
Here, I'll show you the back of the package. They're called Max 021s. This is a dental burr
uh-huh
that dentists use for drilling holes in bone to put implants in. And this little guy, I don't know how close I can get for it to focus.
oh, that's good. And the shank's so short, because
Yeah, it's a
like
little tiny.
the Stumac one that I use is pretty tapered, so it's like
Right.
I
This is
used to get end mills from Rob Jack. You could get end mills down to like 18
right.
thousandths or something like that, but they
Right.
snap off almost immediately.
It's that. So this is they ain't cheap, but they last a good while. It is 21 thousandths wide, which is like perfect for
Yeah,
cleaning out a fret slot.
yeah,
And they are, whatever the depth is, it's like just shy of what your average T fret is.
yeah,
And so I pass this through every fret slot. If it has to get deepened a little bit, it gets deepened. It's a drill. It's not a mill. And so you have to be careful. You can't run it super fast,
yeah.
but it'll clear everything out. You have to just make a small investment in demo bits. I think they cost about $40 a piece, but
We were
but it's worth it. You know,
we
for
were
me, it's worth it.
we were just talking about how much feel there is involved in fretting, and I also Dremel my fret slots out, and I've gotten to where I count on the wiggle from the shitty bearings in the Dremel. Like I turn it up and down depending on how thick, how wide I want the slot to be.
Yeah, I believe it.
put figure out how to write that into a book. And then what you want to do is on like certain
Yeah,
guitars, you want it at like 7 on the Dremel.
that's right. Yeah, just to get your wobble the right amount of wobble.
Yeah, Dan showed me those Proxon
Yeah,
Proxon rotary tools, and I was like, I don't
yeah,
know what I'd do with it, because I watched it and I was like, holy moly, I haven't seen the original Dremels had metal bearings. Like
yeah.
the first Dremel I used had metal bearings, and it was a beautiful turning thing. And ever since they switched to that plastic packing, it's been crazy.
They're
So
pretty terrible. I went through 4 Dremels before I settled on that one. Like I kept buying them and I'd return it. I'd buy another one, I'd return it. I finally got one that's okay.
oh okay,
So that's getting used there.
yeah.
And the one at the main shop at the store is my original Dremel from 20 years ago, which is a way better tool. But so be it.
Yeah.
This works.
So he also wants to know, radius sanding blocks. Do you have like multiple blocks of the same radius and then different grits permanently
No, I
attached?
just changed my sandpaper. Sandpaper needs to get changed so frequently.
It does, yeah.
I just changed the paper.
Yeah.
I have multiple blocks because I use them for all kinds of things,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes I use them. I've well, hang on. So like, I'll make calls, clamping
Uh-huh.
calls, out of radius blocks, and just buy a radius block because there's my radius, and so
Yeah.
I'll just chop the calls out of it that I need. So I go through tons of these things. I think it's way easier than and way more accurate than making this myself on my stupid oscillating spindle sander.
Uh-huh.
So I go through lots of these blocks just in making calls. But I just change the sandpaper when I'm doing a refret.
If you had a really nasty board, what's like the most aggressive grit you'd apply to a fingerboard? If you
120.
120s, that's it.
Yeah.
That's me too. I
Yeah.
feel like I put stuff I tried a couple with 80 on some stuff and I was like putting stuff in that wasn't coming out.
Yeah. I there's no way. I don't want to take that much meat off of a neck. I'll I'll heat a neck and bend it to get it ready for sanding. Um, I'll uh, I'll do all kinds of things to not remove a lot of material from a fingerboard because it just changes everything about the feel of a guitar, and it will affect the tone of a guitar for lots of people. And when you're dealing with expensive vintage guitars, the last thing you want to do is mess with the fingerboard if you don't have to. So
Yeah.
I do a lot of dressing in my frets on. Well, take this guitar for example. Again, brand new frets. This guitar, I decided instead of sanding the fingerboard because it's got one of these really skinny little early 30s Gibson fingerboards, I didn't want to change the neck feel because it's already pretty thin that way.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's got weird shape to the fingerboard. It's just bad 30s Gibson, fingerboard. And so I refretted it with tall fret wire, and I just, like you would on a maple board Fender from the 50s, you just dress the frets and leave
Yeah.
the fingerboard.
I
And
think that's
it
I
doesn't
think
look as good when you look down the edge, but your end result is just as good.
yeah, the looking down the edge, I used to be a real stickler for that and I've really moved away from it because it's fool's gold anyway. I don't know.
It's total fool's gold. Yeah,
The
exactly.
yeah, like people that set uh relief based by looking down the edge. I'm like, what are you looking at? Especially like if I see somebody do it like on a nibbed guitar, I'm like, what are you're looking at the
Yeah,
plastic? You're setting the what's
yeah, that
over
doesn't work.
there? What's over
That
there
doesn't
that
work.
you're looking at? But
Yeah,
so yeah, so hey, my friend Hugh, speaking of tall frets and stuff, he's flipping out a little bit because Jessica is getting rid of the 80 by 37 with the
yeah,
variable
that's a
tank.
big problem.
Well, you guys might want to combine forces or get with somebody. I don't know if there's for me, like we probably had hours of conversation about that. Like I have a hard time putting 37 in anything just because
Right.
it it
It's small.
it seems low to me.
Yeah.
And I mean, if they had like 80 by 43 or 80 by 50, um, and then had the variable tang, I probably would have gotten really accustomed to using that stuff. But it was just it's always hard for me to send something out with 37 and because I probably like like I mean I probably take 3 thousandths I would think off of most. Depends on the
Yeah.
guitar, depends on the spots, but then I'm sending something out that needs a refret after play wear.
Yeah.
At least it feels like it.
Yeah.
But anyway, so what are your thoughts on that? Are you pretty kerfuffled about the
You know, the world will go on. It's annoying because I use that fret wire all the time,
uh
um, and uh, and it's really helpful. It's really handy on a vintage guitar to have their 18.5 thou wire. And on a compression refret, it's helpful to have those frets to properly do a compression refret. Um, we'll survive, but it does suck. We loaded up at Folkway. We loaded up on that stuff when we heard it was happening. We
mhm.
bought a number of pounds of whatever each they had available still. So we have enough to last us a couple years for sure. But it's a bummer. I bet you somebody else will jump in and start making it though,
you
like
know
some
it's
Chinese manufacturer.
it's funny.
It's
I
gonna happen.
I asked Dan. I was like, "You think Stu Mack would ever think about doing that?" He's like, "We used to sell that stuff." And Stuart got so mad at how little of it he sold that he threw it all away. And he said he went out and he fished it out of the dumpster and he held on to it and he was just like shipping it off to his friends as they needed
Right.
it. And he's like, I don't have much of it left, but yeah, It's weird. Yeah, how nichey some of the this stuff is
Yeah.
that you come to rely on. Like, yeah,
Well,
my
look at what happened. Look at what happened when Martin stopped offering bar fret stock.
yeah.
The world ran out of bar fret material, and then TJ went and had it manufactured in Germany or some crazy place, and had to buy, like 500 pounds worth of the stuff. But thank God, because now we have bar fret wiring. He'll sell it to us at his cost, which is just amazing.
It
But
does.
same thing's going to happen with T-fret wire. Someone somewhere is going to manufacture the stuff if it's required, and we'll move on.
I saw somebody that made some. This was on a guitar a while ago, but I saw somebody that had made uh, T bar fret
Yeah,
stock.
yeah, that was TJ.
Was it?
Yeah,
I
that
gotta
stuff is
say,
ridiculous.
that's
Imagine trying to install a T-shaped bar fret. Like it's just I like if you I mean you've done bar fret wire, but for those of you who haven't done bar fret wire, installing bar frets is a completely different phenomenon than installing T frets. Like you don't care about how much fret you have left after you installed it because you're going to mill the whole thing down. Whereas a T fret bar wire, you have to treat like a T fret and have the T like seated on the
yeah.
fingerboard, but the bar is in there, and you have to basically fit everything just so that when you squash this stuff in, the T is actually seated on the board. And on a bar fret wire, I can't even begin to imagine how long that would take. Like that's got to be a $2,500 refret.
I would
Like no,
I would think like because I mean part of the awesomeness of a bar fret is that it's actually making contact with the bottom of the slot. So if you want all that kind of juicy horsepower that's lurking in that, you
that's
know,
right.
I can't. It would almost be like probably even more horrendous than doing a bound bar fret job where you're really trying
Yeah,
to get the fret ends like nailed on the binding and then get it
that's right.
making contact in the bottom. Ugh.
That's right. Yeah, no, that's senseless. Like a style 45 refret, like forget about it. But imagine now that instead of just the two ends you're dealing with, you have the whole
The whole
the
length
whole
of it. Get out of here. I'm not hearing that.
yeah, no
Well, I
thanks.
gotta say, the one that I saw, whoever did it did it beautifully, and
Yeah,
it was one of those things where I looked at it and I kind of shivered a little bit. I was like, ooh.
yeah, yeah. I can only imagine. Yeah.
Let's see here. Oh, Nate's got a good one. You know, you probably deal with a lot of Martins that have. You're not the first one taking the bridge off. You know, like it's got like maybe 40 thousandths of like wing thickness in some spots or something like that. What is your preferred if you can't make a new bridge and you're trying to take a screwed up top and a screwed up bridge and bring them together? What gives? What's your moves?
Well, why can't you make a new bridge? You can always make a new bridge.
I think so. I've seen your bridges. They're a thing of beauty, man. Like I the
This
you know,
whole save original at all
yeah,
costs mentality, I think is some like that. I think it's fundamentally flawed in our biz,
yeah,
and I think saving original when original is salvageable is critical for
yeah,
sure. Like I don't want a new bridge unless I really have to have a new bridge. But if I have to have a new bridge, I prefer a new bridge,
yeah.
right? Like here, new
Yep.
bridge or old bridge, right?
It's
That's a brand new bridge.
yeah,
You might as well have a good new bridge rather than a piece of junk, old, flat, ugly thing.
yeah,
Um, and the flexibility of a bridge has a lot to do with the sound of a guitar. The mass of the bridge has a lot to do with the fit of the saddle. Obviously, the way the bridge occludes to the top has a lot to do with the tone, the fit of the bridge pins. It's all critically important. So I, I, I think as long as the new bridge is done well, go ahead and do it. The bridge plate argument, um, you can destroy a guitar taking a bridge plate out, or you can take a bridge plate out and the guitar is perfect. Generally, on a Martin guitar built before around 1950, when they stopped lapping the X over the bridge plate, um, anything after that era, it's a much easier bridge plate removal, and it's way less threatening to the guitar. I'm not suggesting go and take bridge plates out, everybody, but um, but if a bridge plate is destroyed and you have to, if it's done well, it's not the end of the world, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And so I do my best to reuse old parts every time I can. I'm constantly repairing bridge plates and repairing bridges, but it comes to a point where it's just kind of silly. Oftentimes, when you're dealing with an oversized bridge, hang on a second. I'll just get a guitar here. So here's one. So this is a 44 D18, and this bridge is about 20 thousandths of an inch too wide this way. And I'm going to take it off and put a correct bridge on it because the guitar is worth a fortune and it's otherwise like in beautiful condition. So there's a chance when I pop this bridge off that whoever did this ugly oversized bridge left the finish under the footprint that was original. There's a chance that I can put the original bridge, an original size bridge, back on, and it will look great. Otherwise, there's a little teeny tiny, lipstick of finish touch up around the top that I can make pretty well invisible on a natural finish guitar. On a sunburst guitar, it is so much harder to do a finish touch up around a bridge. But on a natural finish guitar, it's not a big ask to make it look like it almost didn't happen, and you might as well. It's well worth it, but only if you're gonna do it right. There's no reason to do that if you're not willing to put the effort into getting the replacement part to be perfect. Leaning this thing back up.
Yeah. There's a lot of opportunities, especially in Gibson too, where you can work out some of those those manufacturing foibles that Gibson threw into everything that they did, and kind of make sure that saddle slots are perpendicular, and make sure that dimensions are more thinking about like keeping the guitar from eating itself.
Yeah,
That's the
absolutely.
other thing about the bridge plates is yeah, there was a lot of Martins where they put the bridge plate. It seems like they put them in the wrong spot, like back of the face of the bridge and
Yeah,
stuff like that. And for all that originality of the bridge plate, you got like cross grain spruce cracks that are just like, you tell me you'd risk a cross grain spruce crack at the bridge rather than having a new bridge or a new bridge plate. It seems
yeah, exactly. If the guitar needs it for structural integrity, you want it to work right, then do it. With Gibson plates on a guitar like this is a little. This predates the era of complete terrible Gibson
yeah.
workmanship by a couple of years. But on a Gibson, you'll often find the plate is located like here, and that these pins come through just right at the back edge of the bridge plate. And I don't see any reason to keep that plate in the guitar personally, unless it's like the most mint condition example of a valuable guitar. If it's some J45 from 1952 and it has that going on, that bridge plate A is very easy to get out, and B can easily be moved. Don't change the dimensions. Keep it the exact same dimensions, but just put it where it needs to go. And I guarantee that your guitar is going to sound better when you're finished. It's also going to last better. So,
Yeah.
but again, it all hinges on whoever taking that bridge plate out, making sure that they don't go through the top with their palette knife, making sure they don't ruin the spruce. Like repair work like that is only acceptable if it's done well. And unfortunately, we see a lot of not really done well stuff. So we're really harsh on replaced bridge plates because it has become synonymous with lousy repair work. Whereas a well repaired bridge plate that's done really well, so be it.
Yeah. I
you
think I
know?
think that's right. I think I think there was a tendency there for a little bit to fetishize the bridge plate almost as a you know, as the guitars started to increase in value, it became kind of a negotiating
Yeah.
chip between guys making deals for guitars, and I think that's where a lot of that kind of like off to the races with kind of structural. Uh, I don't know.
That's part of it for sure. The other part is that on these early acoustics, where the bridge plate is so small and so lightly built and so critical to the sound of the guitar, you can ruin this guitar. Like, so this again, 1930, right? Um, the bridge plate, the original bridge plate on this guitar is about 80 thou thick and it's about an inch wide, and the maple's super hard. It has a big effect on tone. Um, a new bridge plate in this guitar is going to affect things a lot more than the bridge plate again in that 1957 J45 or
Yeah.
something like that.
You know, I
So it's
saw.
a guitar.
I think when I was at Grun's, I saw a bridge plate that TJ had done on something, and it was large, and he'd put a note on it: "Do not remove." And I
Yeah,
was like,
he does that. I love it.
I was like, man, good for you because you don't know who does a lot of these
Right.
things, and you don't know why there's a larger than usual bridge plate in there. And especially as a young guy, like I was like, oh, I can save the day by pulling that out and putting in
Oh yeah.
a normal size
No.
bridge plate, and then who knows what lurks beneath that bridge plate? Who knows what lurks beneath like a lot of this stuff? Like you don't know
Yeah.
what the other guy was up against.
Right.
Um,
It's good to photograph your work as you're doing it. Before I put the bridge on this guitar, I took pictures
yeah.
of what the top looked like, and whoever buys this guitar will get that picture, and they could know, okay, this bridge was changed not because there was a problem, it's because the original bridge was messed up, and the top is fine, and then they have that confidence, and that could go with the guitar. TJ's idea is genius. Printed um, he printed "Do Not Remove" in reverse,
Uh huh.
so that when you look at it with a mirror, you can
Yeah.
actually read it.
Oh, that's good.
It's really great. I love that.
That's good.
It's
Uh,
genius.
Danny West said, I heard someone messed up the bridge plate locating jig at Martin and they didn't notice for almost a decade. Yeah, that happens. That
Of
happens. You
course, that
ever
can
you
happen.
ever you ever pulled apart a neck from a? I've only ever seen it on 1970, but the peace sign on the dovetail in the 19. Have you ever seen a peace sign on a
I
Martin?
haven't seen one of those. No, I've heard lore of that, but I've not
Yeah,
seen
I
one.
saw one, and it was the worst fit. Even by 70s Martin standards, it was an exceptionally poor fitting
And that,
dovetail.
that was that when Martin was on strike and all the execs were making their guitars.
Oh, I didn't know. Did that happen? Boy, that's a real
That
like.
was the thing.
That
I
sounds
think that
like
was in '76.
that sounds
I
like the
think.
premise of a 70s TV show. That sounds
Yeah.
great. Like we'll show them, and then they learn their lesson, and labor is negotiated with more earnestly. Oh, that's
That's,
hilarious.
that's exactly.
Let's see here. What notes regarding maintenance work do you make? String height, instrument adjusted, instrument condition, adjustment, etc. Do you keeping notes on guitars, or you?
So
What's
we
your?
have at my store, Folkway, we have a point of sale system, and the repairs all get entered.
Mm-hmm.
And so we just track what the action was when the guitar came in, and what the action was when the guitar came out. And I'm only just measuring at the 12th fret. We're not going deeper into action than that. And of course we have a record then of all the repairs that we did. Every time a guy does a repair, it gets itemized so that when the customer picks it up, they know exactly what we've done, and we have record of it too. That's all we do. I don't go crazy with feeler gauges. Um, I The only thing that I do by measurement is string action, and that's and string action at the 12th fret. I don't measure nut heights. I don't measure relief. Of course, I measure fingerboard radius and that kind of thing. But in terms of my setup specs, nut height I do by eye and by feel, and truss rod I do by eye and by feel, and what the guitar and the player want.
Mm-hmm.
And string action is largely by feel, except that I check it all with a ruler just to see if I'm where I want to be.
What point of sale system are you using? Are you using like Lightspeed or?
Yeah, it's terrible. We use Lightspeed at our shop, and
Yeah.
it's that's a six-finger glove that we're trying to fit on our hand.
Yeah. What is that?
But
What is
it's
that actually made for? We used that at a shop I worked at in Brooklyn, and like I always
it's
felt
terrible.
like I was failing a math exam when I was using it.
It's so badly thought out, that program. But what happens is you make the investment in getting into it, and you
Yeah.
go through the whole process, and then you're like, well, crap, I don't want to change this. I don't want to change it again. And so we just deal with it. It's not a very smart point of sale system. It's not really well designed. It's very clunky,
Yeah.
and it makes paperwork take way longer than it needs to. But we have all the information, and
Yeah.
that's all I really care about. It's searchable by customer, and then I can find out their guitar and I can look everything up.
So, Tyler wants to know, do you find a notable difference in resilience between flat and quarter sawn bridge plates? I'm going to go ahead and throw, since we're all talking about rift sawn bridge plates now, we'll go ahead and throw a rift in there too. What are your thoughts on grain orientation on bridge plates?
So I don't like quarter sawn bridge plates because they're cracky.
They do
Um,
crack.
I like rift sawn bridge plates. Rift. I don't go flat either. I think that's silly, but something rifty is
Yeah,
nice. And I generally don't line the grain up with the bridge pins. I usually am a little bit. If these are your bridge pins, I'm usually just a little bit off and a
yeah,
little bit rifty. Um, and I'll thickness a bridge plate to what I want it to be for flex. And maple, each piece of maple is different, and some maple is really hard, and some maple is really not hard. And the magic ingredient to creating a good sounding guitar is to not be black and white about such things,
yeah,
and to treat each piece of wood as its own thing and build with it accordingly. And so a bridge plate might be 100 thou, a bridge plate might be 70 thou. In vintage restoration world, when you're dealing with, let's say, a Gibson from 1929, the bridge plates were maybe 40 thousandths of an inch thick. On a mint condition guitar, I'll replace it with the same, but on a more player instrument, I'm going to up it to maybe 60 thou just
yeah.
to give it a little more chance of actually surviving. But I'm going to find the hardest maple in the world to do that with. So I've been sourcing maple for bridge plates for many, many years. Um, Most of the wood that I use for bridge plates is reclaimed wood from old houses, like hardwood subfloor kind of maple from houses that were built in the 1800s. And it smells different, and it works through tools different. It looks different. It's just naturally torrefied without being cracky and chippy like torrefied wood. And uh, and it the harder the bridge plate, the better your guitar is going to sound, and the better it's going to survive, and the thinner you get to build with it. Don't make a really hard piece of wood thick. You got to go thin with that stuff.
So are you getting your are you going? Do you have a source locally for reclaimed material, or are you going online? And is there a specific?
No, I find it where I find it. Like
Yeah.
I mean, like
Well,
I
it's
I
funny. A chunk of floor from would probably last you on bridge plates for some time, I would think.
for a long time. You get an 8 foot chunk of subfloor. I mean, that's all that you need for your life for
Yeah.
bridge plates. But I mean, like I have I buy 2x4s or 2x8s at Home Depot if the grain is nice, and I'll make cleats and stuff out of that wood.
Hmm.
Um, you just split it with an axe, and there you go. It's axe split wood. I won't use it day I buy it. It usually sits for a year or two to make sure it's stable. But there's nothing wrong with that stuff for cleat wood. I'm not going to brace a guitar with it, but I know people that have. I know people that have found good enough wood that they could build tops with it at Home Depot, and it's white spruce generally, which is pretty indistinguishable from red spruce, and it's good stuff. You use wood where you can. Again, um, here's another thing. We're all so fascinated with the look of spruce. We equate quality tone to just this master grade spruce, perfectly quartered and tight and quarter flower. And it's just it's kind of that's another one of those fool's gold sort of things. Some of the best sounding spruce is ugly, and it's much more about the density and the strength to weight ratio. And each piece of wood is going to sound different when you tap it. Um, and so one of the things that I think as a society we got to get used to is just like turning our eyes off a little bit and listening with our ears instead of our eyes, and being okay with wood that is less than cosmetically perfect. We certainly are going to have to going forward as there's less and less good wood left in the world. But yeah, you can find wood anywhere, and it's just about knowing how to tell if it's the good stuff. I
Yeah.
guess
There
is the
there was
short
that
answer to that.
kind of off to the races wood aesthetics things in the '90s as Collins and Santa Cruz were kind of coming online, and they were escalating that beautiful wood and some of the electric manufacturers too. But that kind of the value is in the look of the wood too was I think that was that '90s
And
golden age of
there's a
lithia
lot to be
thing.
said. There's a lot to be said for good looking wood. Don't get me wrong,
I
um,
mean,
but it's not necessarily the best wood.
yeah,
But it could be.
yeah. I mean, I think, yeah. I mean, guitars are for listening to. Like, I mean, otherwise you got a coffee table. It seems like. Um,
Manual coffee tables. Yes.
the getting back to Nate's question about, and everybody that's in the chat, feel free to lodge a question there, because I'm running out of the pre-made ones, but Mark and I could gab for a long time about any of this stuff, so I'm not that worried about it. But so getting back to the deformed bridge, lifted, like kind of all of the different things that we see in footprints of bridges that have come off, several times or whatever. Like, what are some of the things, like, are you cutting, like, if you had like a lot of run out that had been kind of butchered before, would you be tempted to cut a bridge into the footprint pattern? Would
No,
you?
I really don't. I really don't like doing that. I will grow the top.
Yeah.
Uh, I'll add spruce to the top, and then get a flat surface, and then
Hmm.
put the bridge back together. Um, I don't want. I'm just gonna grab a guitar. One second. All right. So oftentimes, um, so here's a guitar. This one is really not bad. The bridge has been off before by somebody, you can see, but it's all right. But oftentimes, um, there'll be a cut line right at the back edge of a bridge from people like inlaying spruce or
Yep.
inlaying a bridge, and that's the easiest way to screw up a top forever is to cut right there, and to inlay spruce to build up a swimming pool problem, or perhaps they cut through it to clear the finish before they glued a bridge on in the first place, but they cut really deeply and they
Yeah.
cut through all the top layers of spruce. But that's the easiest way to kill a guitar. And so I'm not fond of actually routing out messed up top grain um, and inlaying fresh spruce. I'd rather like actually feather little pieces and glue them on, and then take a very sharp tool and get them flat to get everything just right. I think it's really important to not mess with the top, particularly behind the bridge pin holes, and particularly on these old guitars that have no room to mess with right behind the hole. It's super
Yeah.
critical. Good.
I call that when people cut, because I have to remove finish on a lot of bridges, to get that good contact. But the that cutting through the finish and into the spruce, man, you just, like, you're creating your own run out, basically, is what you're doing.
You are.
And
It's terrible. Yeah.
and yeah, I watched who's the cat from Elderly?
Who,
Joe.
Joe?
Oh,
Joe.
Yeah, Joe. I watched something of his recently where he was using stripper to get the finish
Yeah.
off, and I'm like, whoa. But
You don't use
like,
the stripper.
what's that?
You don't use stripper to get the
No,
finish off.
I use a knife and a chisel to get the finish off, but I'm real light on it. Like, I do not cut into it. Mostly I score the finish, primarily just to make sure that
Yeah.
it's not gonna
You got to
flake
score
off.
it.
What's
You
that?
have to score it. You
Yeah,
have to score it. Yeah.
and I just get real nervous dragging stripper around guitars, like, because I'm just not.
Oh, I do it all the time. The stripper trick is my go-to.
Yeah,
Um, and I do have to score it. Like you have to use a knife on there. You just
yeah,
have to make sure that your knife is sharp
yeah.
and that you don't press hard. So you're only going through finish. And I mean, you know it, but you can feel the difference between finish and wood
Oh yeah,
very easily. You know when you're in wood and when you're in finish. So
yeah.
it's
And
just,
like, I strap on the Optivisor for that, and I get real close, and I'm watching the end of my knife, and
that's
um,
right.
the Connor Cassidy, he's over in the UK, I think. I think he's in Ireland, but he wants to know, do you glue in your frets, and if so, what do you use for gluing in your
Sure.
frets?
I'll put this away 1 sec.
All right.
Um, Luckily, the shop is tiny, so everything's closed. I will always glue my frets in all the time. Even if I glue them in, it doesn't matter if they need it or not. I think gluing in your frets is critical to the long-term success of that refret. I've seen too many old guitars with the fret ends are just blowing right up. Expansion and contraction, finger oil gets in there, just releases them. And I also truly believe that your guitar sounds better when you glue your frets in. And again, it's all about filling up air cavity with solid material.
Yeah.
I use CA glue. I use uh, I use one of these
Mm-hmm.
full of CA glue, and I'll just drip at the edges and in the middle if I need to, and wipe off the excess, and then acetone takes all your dried CA glue away.
Oh, good, good.
Yeah.
Are you a friend of mine is he blasts. Are you familiar with the fret barber from Stutman?
Yeah.
Do you blast your barbs off, or are you leaving barbs on when you fret?
No, I want the barbs. I like barbs.
I like barbs too.
They
Although
make your life.
Just car barbs, just cars, boy, I don't know about now. They're getting rid of that fret wire, and I think their barbs are too sharp. Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
I think that.
what's
I
that?
just barbs. I think barbs are critical to having your frets actually stay put,
Yeah,
particularly if you're hammering.
yeah.
I mean, bar frets stay put really well with no barbs. So who the heck knows?
Well, the
But
one
I generally like barbs, and I'll sometimes add barbs to frets, particularly like up here, so I don't have to hammer it as hard. And I use this specifically for that purpose. This sort of like blunted, pointy
yeah,
end of the hammer.
yeah.
Just to put barbs in, sort of like what 30s guitars look like. That's where I got the idea. Is before they had fret wire with barbs, they had fret wire and they put the barbs in with a hammer before they installed the frets. And so that's what I do when I need to have a bit more barb, rather than that mashy thing that Stutman sells. I've never been a fan of that. I bought those tools, but I don't use them.
I just pulled that thing out. Somebody was asking me about that the other day, and I was like, I just pulled that fret tang crimper out for the first time in probably 10 years.
Yeah.
And it was a real rare instance. So that tang crimper, as you crimp, you're hiding your barbs. Like,
Yeah.
your barbs are like sitting in between that wave of the crimp. So
That's right.
I have a thing that I made with a set of side cutters that essentially does the same thing that you're doing with the hammer there. And so
Sure.
I
Yeah.
came back and put my little mushrooms on the bottom of the fret after crimping it. But that tang crimper, boy.
Yeah. That's a weird tool. The only challenge with those using that hammer, it's the same challenges that we face when we try to take frets out of some 1925 Larson or whatever. The fingerboard just gets destroyed.
It's yeah,
And
it's hell on the next guy in an industry where you're frequently your own next guy.
yeah,
Oof.
yeah, so that's definitely a challenge. I try to avoid that, but sometimes it's necessary. Pressing your frets in, makes life so much easier, and makes everything so much cleaner again for the next guy. So I generally will fret. I'll generally press right up to where I can't press any longer.
What's your
And
what's
then
your
I
what's
don't
your
bother with
presser?
the extra. Sorry?
What are you using for pressing on a guitar?
I have my Stutman first generation Jaws thing.
Jaws? Yeah.
We have 4 or 5 of those things now. We have every generation of them. My favorite is still my first generation one. And I have modified it little bits and pieces over time, but that's what I use. I'm very used to it. I don't press over the body. I just hammer. I hammer all this.
Uh-huh.
I'm as good with a hammer as I am with pressing. I just think that you're assured perfection with the press, and you're not assured perfection with a hammer. So
Yeah. Yeah. There was a day when I was hammering all the time that I would have argued with you on that, but those days are gone.
yeah.
I got the let's see here.
And now that Stutman has every radius available.
Yeah.
I was on them for years about giving us those intermediary radiuses, 15 and 17 and 18 and 19 and all that. Like you can't do a compound fingerboard without having every radius, right? So
Yeah,
give me those radiuses.
that's
So
true.
now they finally have them, and it's great.
And there's a lot of instances too where, like, if I've got like some roll off on the edge of the board that I don't get to take out, and I want to put like a little over kink in there,
Right.
I might use two radiuses on the same fret.
Exactly.
Like,
Yeah, totally. It's a great trick. For sure.
um, Jeff is asking, or somebody was asking about the Thompson belly reducer. How often do you put that into your arsenal of tricks? Are you using the belly
So
reducer quite a bit?
yeah, so hang on a second. I got more here. So here are some Thompson belly reducers. These ones are prototype Gibson top correctors. We haven't figured out a name for them yet, but I've used the Martin specific ones many times on old Martins. They work beautifully on Martin guitars. It's a pretty smart system. I used to do the exact same thing, and I would just make wooden versions of them and heat them up in my toaster and stick them in. It's just nice to have a piece that's repeatable, and it's thin and hard and aluminum and small, and
So
saves me from making the wooden one. So, but you can't use those ones. You can't use the Thompson belly reducers on a Gibson or on a Larson or on anything else that has a radius top. A Martin top at the bridge is flat. The bridge is glued on flat on a Martin guitar. The X braces have a radius to them, but the bridge itself is glued on flat, and so the belly reducer is perfect for fixing cupping, bowing that happens at the bridge itself. You can't do that on a Gibson because these guitars are built with this 10 to 15 foot radius, and if you try to use a belly reducer on a Gibson, you're going to ruin the guitar. So TJ asked me to help him prototype a Gibson set, and it's gone through, it's a couple of years now of prototyping, and we finally have a set that makes sense to me. And they are basically built with a 15-foot radius every which way in them, and instead of having a second aluminum caul that goes on the top of the guitar, you heat this thing up and use a large plexi caul that goes over the whole thing to help flatten the whole. Well, not flatten, but to help reprofile the top radius of the guitar. So I'll use these a lot, and the reason we've made this with TJ is that again, it's something that I've been using for years that I would make on my own out of plywood. I would sand plywood into my radius that I need and reshape the top. We're also building, this is my favorite thing. He's going to have these things marketed through StuMac soon. But he made me some of these things, which basically have the same 15-foot radius. And so that's it right there.
yeah.
So if you have the
Seconds of that because our internet is $100 trash from Verizon. Can you? So I feel like we buried the lead there. So can you explain what you're accomplishing with that out of bridge plate out of the guitar belly reducer? Yeah,
the big one. So oftentimes Gibson, because the pins are located so far back on the bridge, the whole top develops this sort of hinge back here.
Yep.
From torque, and so to correct the whole top shape, you have to take the bridge off and the bridge plate off, and then once that's all out, this guy goes in. Top is hot. Top is all wet. This is hot. This goes in, and you basically iron the top back into shape with this thing. It clamps, and on the top, you're not using just the little thing that goes right the size of the bridge. You're using a wide plexiglass caul that you can clamp all over the place on, and it's a really good way of reshaping the top of the Gibson. I've made these things that fit right over a bridge plate. If I don't want to take the bridge plate out, like you just have, strips of maple that leave space for the bridge plate. It indexes right on the bridge plate. But it's really important to get the shape of a top correct. as part of a restoration project. And so Martin bellies happen for one reason. Gibson bellies happen for another reason. The Martin belly reducers that TJ makes for Martins work really well on Martins because the bridge pins are centered in the bridge. Um, Here's a Martin bridge, and the bridge pins are right in the center of the bridge, right? So any belly that happens from the center of the bridge, so you can flatten it with his belly reducers. Or a Gibson, the ballons are the strings are at the back of the bridge, so the belly, you can't use that same system to unbelly a Gibson.
Mm-hmm.
It just doesn't work because of where the bridge pins are located. So these are why we've sort of had to modify that system to work on Gibsons for a few reasons.
So are you finding with that, like, I gotta confess, I haven't used belly reducers before, but are you finding that you're getting, are you able to like take a guitar that's like neck reset time for having a belly and getting away from a neck set just by virtue of reducing the belly on it, or do you feel like
I think a
belly
neck
is the
a belly is one thing and a neck set's another. And
yeah
usually when there's a belly happening, this is going on,
yeah
which isn't really changing your
change
string.
the action yeah
It's changing the shape. And so you when you need an exit, you need an exit.
yeah
You know, the
yeah I'm
belly is
pretty
different. Yeah.
yeah, I kind of grew up with the kind of the folklore that neck sets were happening because of belly, and I'm pretty convinced it's a lot of neck block. It's probably
Yeah,
more happening in the
next
neck
set is all
block.
happening because of what's going on here,
Yeah.
and because of what's going on with the back, that often has a lot of arch that flattens out.
Hmm.
Um, yeah,
I was talking to a friend of mine about some struggles with some neck sets. Like getting ambushed uh, on neck sets, and he said, boy, he had one that had a refinished back, and he said that was one of the most difficult ones he'd ever done because he didn't realize it at the time. It was a fairly good refin, but the back had gotten thin compared to factory specs, and he was losing a lot of, or he felt like he was, who knows with any of this stuff, what's causing what, it
right.
seems like. Um, let's see here. So Chad wants to know. Chad is currently. Do you know Chad Gerby? Have you ever run into
Yep,
him?
I know,
So
Chad.
he's striking out on his own, and he's wanting to know what advice do you have for people starting new shops and getting new clients. And I'd like to expand this too because I dabbled in having my own shop one time, and the balancing act is just intense. So you're doing retail, you're doing repair. I'm guessing that you're probably not trying to divide your time between large projects and small projects, but boy, when I was first in business for myself, that trying to do setups and neck resets at the same time just about killed me trying to figure that out. I'm sure you've
What kills me is trying to find time to do the full on lose money art project restorations.
yeah
Um, mixed in with things like just getting a neck on a guitar or doing a refret, things that you can actually make
yeah
money of doing. Um, there's a lot of people right now that want me to do these large restoration jobs that take up all your time and make you poor. And I'm not. I'm having a hard time balancing all that. I
yeah
have no problem for me to throw a set up and in the middle of making a new bridge or
mm-hmm.
17 loose braces. I don't like to because I like doing the restoration stuff more, but a setup will be done quick and it's
Mm-hmm.
done. It's those trying to figure out how to splice three cracks in a $20,000 Sunburst Gibson without making it look like you were ever there. It's so hard.
So do you find you have to be in the balancing, how much does being in the right frame of mind kind of play into it? Do you have to like look at a project and kind of go, yep, it's time to do this, or nope, it's time to stay the hell away from this thing for
Yeah,
a little bit?
I can't
Um,
work on a project I'm not into. I have to be in the right headspace. This is part of why this
mhm.
shop at home happened, is because at Folkway, I own the store. It's a retail store. I've got staff and three other repair guys, and I'm doing so much more than just repair. And so for me to focus in on a job that needs my ultimate focus, I can't do it there. I just can't do it there.
Yeah.
And and so that stuff just wasn't happening. So I'm bringing. If we look around here at the store, at the shop the guitars I have here, they're all A-list guitars that I just don't want to work on at the store. I come in here, my kids go to bed. I come in and I've got 2, 3, 4 hours at the end of the day and the end of the night to really focus. And I'll work here a couple days a week now too. Um, so focus is so critical. It's just so critical. And in answer to Chad's question, I think he's doing what he can do. You just try to do the best work that you're capable of doing, and you try to treat people really well and give customers the best service you can offer to them, and make sure beyond anything that your own commitment to quality is unwavering. And you'll get there. It's going to take time because there's a lot of us doing guitar repair now. There's just so many people doing guitar repair, and there's a lot of great guitar repair people that the world hasn't heard about yet, just because you don't have 30,000 Instagram followers. But if you just stay the course and just do the best that you can do, you'll get there, for sure.
I think that's right. Boy, there. I wonder how many guitar repair guys there were when I was coming up. I felt like I was alone in it.
Like 12. They're like,
oh, hold on, I gotta turn my compressor off.
Mine might do that too soon. No, there was nobody.
What's that?
There was nobody doing guitar repair then.
I got into it by walking into a guy's shop who was doing guitar repair, and I was like, "This is a thing. I want to do this." Like, I had no idea it was a thing. It was like if you told me that, working on Mars was a thing or something.
Right.
It was.
Yeah, but now, I mean, there's so many schools that are graduating guitar repair people, guitar building people. There's so much to learn on the internet. Like, you turn on YouTube, you can learn how to do anything at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, experience is the most important thing, and you only get experience by doing stuff, and you only learn the right way to do something by learning it, by screwing it up 100 times to start with. Case in point, I had a guy come in with his D18. He had an early 70s D18. I worked on it 20 years ago. And I was terrified at that point of neck resets. I had only done a handful, and I was scared of them. And I didn't do a neck reset on that guy's guitar. And it was just a plain old, it was like a 1970 D18. It wasn't a special guitar. It was played a lot. It was worn. And I sanded the crap out of the fingerboard. I just did one of those refrets where you sand everything off the sand and nothing here. And because I was terrified of taking the neck off this guitar. And he didn't know the difference, and I gave him his guitar back, and it was good work at the time. It played fine, but it was the wrong way to do something. And he came back like 3 years ago for a setup. And I said, "Listen, man, like, I can't let you have this guitar." And so I took his guitar, and I took the fingerboard off, and I made him a new fingerboard, and I reset the neck, and made his guitar perfect, and I did it all for free. Because I felt so terribly that this is something that I did. But it's only because now I'm comfortable doing that. Like, you gotta spend all that time not knowing what you're doing and ruining guitars to learn how to do it properly. Ideally, you don't do it on other people's guitars, particularly now that they're worth money. Ideally, you do it on guitars that you own. And my mistake 20 years ago was doing that to that guy's guitar. So I tried to fix it. As long as you don't have too many customers out there with guitars that you screwed up, then you're okay. Buy guitars and learn how to fix them on your own property so that you can screw it up all you want yourself.
Yeah, I was talking to somebody the other day about kind of lamenting, there is a lot of information, a lot of kids are coming up, but it's just a weird time for guitars, one of the things that's interesting is like the crazy good manufacturing that's going on, even in China now. And I'm wondering, like, so how are you gonna sell a refret on a guitar when guitars can be a lot of guitars can be replaced for $300, like less than the price of what it would, you would get into a refret for. And I'm just like, man, I don't know. That's a
tricky one, but what that comes down to is how much you love your own guitar.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people driving $2,000 cars out there and doing $2,000 of work to them. I'm like, and there's a lot of people in the world that don't believe that things should be disposable.
Yeah.
So even though my guitar is only $300, why the heck not keep it on the road? Like, if it just needs a refret, I love my guitar, great, let's do it. And so I try not to sell work that is above the value of a guitar if it's a junky guitar. But if you have some Seagull that you love that you've played for 20 years and it's your baby, and yeah, sure, it's worth $120 and my refret is, 4 times as much. It's still your baby. Just fix
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
You know.
I think that's. Yeah, I would hope that people would get out of the idea of throwing guitars away because they need refrets.
For me personally, like my background is in environmental sciences.
Hmm.
I don't like seeing old growth wood on $300 guitars.
Yeah.
I think that they shouldn't be allowed to make guitars with old growth Sitka, unless there was like a price that was added on to it for conservation or something like that.
It's
So
something.
yeah, so keep those. Like take your Chinese made Court and hot rod that thing. You can make that into a great guitar.
Hmm.
Get in there and scallop those braces properly, or whatever. But yeah, I think if your guitar works, fix it for
Mark,
sure.
we're past the hour. I've got a couple more questions. Do you have any
Sure.
more time? Do you have some time?
Oh yeah, yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Okay. Jonathan Radford wants to know what's your favorite glue for headstock repairs and bridge repairs. I think bridge probably goes without saying.
So I
Pretty.
use high glue. I use high glue for all things bridge related. I actually, if I have to do a spruce splice into a top, I'll epoxy that,
Yeah.
and because I don't want that to come apart if the bridge ever comes apart.
Yeah.
So things that are but a glue joint that I want to be able to undo, I'll use high glue for. On a headstock repair, I'll use high glue. I'll use epoxy. I'll use super glue.
Super glue.
Yeah,
All right.
and if you have one of those, it's really quite. I've been experimenting with various different repairs. Like I had this one customer who just the Erlings kept destroying her guitar. The headstock just kept breaking, and I had fixed it this way and I fixed it that way, and this latest break was a compound fracture that was broken in this direction
Uh-huh.
and this direction.
Oh.
It was all like splintery everywhere, and there was no way to clamp it and glue it. There's no way to get glue in it. If you have just a basic headstock break that goes over here and you can open it up, you can get in there and clamp it. Easy peasy. That's the easiest repair in the world. But this thing, I couldn't glue it. There was no way to glue it. And so I held it in place and I soaked it with super glue. Soaked it. I was like, this is all I got. I'm going to try to do this. I'm going to see what happens. I soaked it with super glue and it penetrated every which way. And then I sanded it and I sprayed it to match, and it hasn't budged, and it's like a rock. You can't use super glue on just like your normal Gibson headstock break. But if the thing is a whole bunch of splinters and there is no glue joint anyways,
Yeah.
you need something that's going to get in there and just kind of make it all one unit. And the super glue works great for that. It's surprising. If you have just a split, yeah, that's an epoxy or a high glue kind of repair in my world. I trust high glue to most everything, to be honest with you. I think it's like natural epoxy. It's like Mother Nature's epoxy. And it's ridiculously strong, and it's really easy to undo if you need to undo it.
Hmm.
It's really easy to redo if something breaks again. So yeah, I'll do that. I don't do a lot of splices on headstock repairs. I can and I have. I generally think that that's overkill. I think that we don't need to splice things as much as we're splicing. If it's a lousy old repair that you're redoing, it's a different story. But if you're the first guy at the repair, I don't think that we need to splice as much as we're splicing. Oftentimes just a straight glue up is enough for those kind of things.
I do that backstrap thing, and I do it basically on in two events. One that it's broken several times,
Right.
and the other one I did one here recently where the break was just such ridiculous short grain nonsense. Like there was just this short little bit of gluing surface area. I was like, I don't, and I told the guy, I was like, I'll glue it up, but like there's absolutely no warranty with just gluing it up.
For sure.
But,
And your backstrap thing is really slick. I It's just a lot of work,
it is a lot of work. I
A lot of
charged
people don't want to pay that much to fix their guitar, you know?
I charged 5 for that, and I wanted to do it because I was doing that YouTube thing, and I wanted to get it on YouTube, but
Yeah.
it's easily seven something like that, 750 maybe.
Yeah, at least. And I mean, you're doing finished. Like, just because you're good at finished work doesn't mean that you should do it cheaper, you know? And it's really a lot of work, and the person needs to pay for the amount of time that you spent to get as good as you are
I
at it.
like this advice. I'm gonna write that. Can I get that? Can I quote you on that and put that on my
Sure.
website from Mark
Yeah,
Stutman? All right.
sure. Go right ahead. No, it
So
should. I mean, like, we're silly about this. I mean, like, again, like my replacement bridges,
yeah,
like I'm good at it. It doesn't take me that long to make one, but I didn't lower my price because it's taken me this long to get good at it. You know,
exactly, exactly.
and
And for whatever, I know you're in communist Canada up there, but for whatever reason, we're still a capitalist society, and there is something to the scarcity of the resource, like and that's it's scarce exactly for why you said it is, which is it took you a long time to figure it out.
yeah,
There was some innovation along the way, and yeah, it this idea that we're patron saints of the unfixed guitar, I think needs to.
right.
I
That
think
needs to change.
I think it does need to change, especially for just for my own, like the bottom line is one thing, but my own self esteem. I mean, at some point you got to like, you know, I think some of the, some of these guys that have these guitars, like I don't think finances are the the burden of the conservancy of the guitar should be on the owner of the guitar.
Yeah, I think
So
so too. The
uh,
challenge, though, like who wants to do a $900 repair on a $1,300 guitar? You know, we're limited in what people are willing to pay us, but we care so much about the quality of our own craftsmanship that we don't want to do it less so. And so like, here we are, you know, just eating it for taking it for the
it's
team, you know, and that's just
it's
not cool. We have to like as a as a unionized group of guitar repair people, we need to look at that. We
let's
need to not charge $200 for a refret
let's
because
let's
just
get to
because it, you know, just because you can do it in 2 hours doesn't mean you need to charge $200 for it. So yeah, there's a lot of that I wish that we were a more
well
organized, less competitive group to
let,
really try to affect change in that department.
let's talk about that because maybe we should use this moment to do something because I'll tell you what I've had a couple experiences in emails recently where I got the sense that customers are in this interconnected world of information. Customers are starting to realize that they can play repair guys off of each other, and I've seen that in my own emails. Oh yeah, well I talked to so and so over here, and they said blah blah blah, and I was like, you know, uh, maybe we need to get interconnected on our end as well, and maybe come
Yeah,
up with some, nothing like the guilds of Europe with violin stuff, but maybe something a little
it would
bit.
be genius. It would be really genius to have sort of a suggested pricing, but that comes with a serious caveat that there are some major differences in skill level
Yeah,
because we don't have an accreditation to become a guitar repair person. You can be a guy that has a chisel and a glue pot and call yourself a guitar repair
yeah.
person even though you've never worked on a guitar before. And so that's the challenge, right? Like,
It is. There does seem to there needs to be some standards that go along with it for sure.
yeah.
Because, but it's
And then
getting.
and then sorry, Ian, but then whose job is it to play God? Do you know? It makes a
Yeah,
difference, right?
yeah. That's why I think, and especially in guitars, it would have to be something more on the informal end, like we were saying. Like the guilds of the violin luthiers in Europe are probably not a model that should be replicated in the
Right.
humble guitar world, but something could be done. I think something non-binding, but kind of like because it would be good. I had a friend that talked about doing this, and it ruffled a lot of feathers, and but it would be good if there was something that we could point to and say, this is when we do a fingerboard extension shim. This is when we don't do a fingerboard extension shim. If we just kind of got together and had some drinks and kind of
Yeah.
put something together that we could put on the internet somewhere, not that was like necessarily legally binding, but that you could point to in a negotiation with a customer and say, this is what the kind of this is what the current consensus on this is, and pry it away from those forums, man. Like,
Yeah, yeah. The forums are the death of us for sure. There's no question.
so
I hear.
let's see here. Corey wanted to know, and maybe we'll make this the last question. We've been going a little deep here. Corey wanted to know, how much time do you dedicate to retail in your shop, and do you enjoy that part as much as repair? You enjoy slinging the guitars? You like?
You know what? It depends on who the customers are. I do a lot of retail in my store.
Mm-hmm.
I can do every job in my store, and so when I'm needed in retail, I do retail. Usually, if someone comes in with a vintage instrument or a high value instrument, I'm brought in. Um, I I like doing retail with customers who appreciate like a high quality of customer service kind of retail. I don't enjoy doing retail for customers who are trying to look for the best price on something. It's just not my deal. I'm not a best price kind of store. You want that, you can go to the chain store across the street. And but if you want the best quality and the instrument that's in the best working order, I'm your man. And so for customers that come to my shop for that, I love doing retail with them. I love teaching people about guitar. I love teaching people how to hold the pick to get the best tone out of their guitar. I like to teach people about vintage guitars and why they sound the way they sound and what tone woods do. I love it all. I love it all. Um, Ultimately, I love guitar repair the most, but I love guitar repair only when it's on my terms. I don't love guitar repair where I have to repair somebody else's oversized bridge. I don't like that. And at this point, I'm able to become more and more choosy about what I'm working on, and I'm just saying no to repairs that are not going to bring me satisfaction. On it, like again, a Gibson J45, that's somebody's put an oversized bridge on. Um, I don't, or a belly down bridge, on a guitar. I don't want that job. I don't want to take that bridge off. I don't want to do the finish work required because I know that there's no human way to make that look like it never happened, and I only want to do the work if I know I can make it look like it never happened. And so I just don't take those jobs on any longer. That said, if I get to work on this, like look at this thing's gorgeous.
Yeah.
I'd love to make a bridge for this guitar. It's a 1930 Gibson Nick Lucas. There's so few of them out there. I'm honored to work on it, and I spent so much longer than I need to just to massage the details on it. I love the zen and art of details when you get to work on these things where it that all adds up and makes a serious difference. And That's the kind of guitar repair I really, really dig. Yeah.
It's really important. How long do you think it took you to get to the point where you weren't just kind of making yourself miserable taking on all comers and repair? One of the things that took me a long time to figure out was where that was at for me. And I like fixing broken guitars. Like for me, like endlessly screwing around with already functioning guitars, trying to get them to within, some marginal improvement in playability or whatever, like that doesn't do much for me. I like broken guitars. But
Yeah.
when did you figure out kind of where your spot was?
Probably within the last 5 years, I'd imagine. Um, I mean, yeah, I guess in the last 5 years, I've really come to a place where I think my reputation is solid enough that I will continually have this stream of the kind of guitars I want to work on my bench. I think if I lived in the States, it would have happened a lot longer ago. But international shipping is an impediment, and and uh, and there's just simply not as many customers and as many of these guitars here in Canada. Um, but uh, but probably about 5 years ago, really, is when I was able to say, listen, I don't really want this job.
Mm.
Thanks, um, and that's good. I still take them on every now and then because the person is very persuasive, and maybe I shouldn't because those guitars are the ones that just hang out for far too long before I actually get to working on them. But Yeah, but it took a long time. It certainly took a long time. A part of it is my own sort of confidence in my own perfectionism and knowing that I could do this better. But and I still think that I can do it better. Like it's never that never goes away. I'm always trying to make it better than the last one,
Yeah.
and this might be my like 600th replacement bridge, but I'm still trying to make it better than the last one, and that's what keeps it interesting.
Yeah, man. I think that's really cool. Hey, speaking of the international shipping, is CITES was that a big deal for you? CITES kind of taking off and getting kind of draconian,
CITES,
or
CITES is endlessly a big deal for me.
yeah,
Endlessly. I mean, as the store that sells vintage instruments in Canada, with a lot of customers in the United States, it's a daily part of my existence.
mm-hmm.
I'm very fluent in CITES. Um, our store basically upholds CITES on every international shipment, and it's a lot of work, and it has cost us some sales. Um, but I am a risk averse sort of individual, and I have no interest in having anything confiscated.
Well,
So,
as somebody that's studied in the ways of environmentalism too, it probably it probably makes a lot of sense. Like I know
yeah,
I talked to George a little George a little bit about it, and he was all up in arms about it, and I was like, man, something's got to be done. This stuff is not.
yeah.
So I mean,
I, I think CITES is really a great idea. I think that it needs improvement as to the way that they've cast their net.
mm-hmm.
Some better grandfathering of this stuff would be really helpful. Like, why do we have to go through the same rigmaroles on this as a brand new piece of Brazilian rosewood furniture that was just made from logs that were cut down 3 days ago?
Yeah,
It's a different world. Like when this guitar was made, Brazilian rosewood was just another lumber, and so we have to use CITES, but be able to not have it impede the stuff that we do as much as it is. And thankfully, it's becoming more normalized. I think with each of these passing CITES conventions that they have every couple of years, we'll get to a point within our careers that it's, you simply write pre-convention, check, and you ship it, and away it goes. But or the permit is an online downloadable thing. You print it, you sign it, you send it with the guitar, and there's no hold periods. But right now we're having some troubles trying to figure it all out. We ship to the United States, and with the current administration, the whole CITES and any environmental sort of thing is heavily compromised in terms of staffing and efficiency. So perhaps that'll improve, in future years. But yeah, I think there's room to get better on it. I think that the idea is great, and I think that we need to look at that in terms of our modern tonewoods, in terms of our Sitka spruces, our North American rainforests that are getting chopped down for guitars. We need to figure out ways to deal with that. We need to be better at making guitars out of walnut and maple because that wood is available to us, and our stigma that those woods don't sound good needs to get changed. But yeah, but you know what? It's all workable. We can work with any of it. It's just it's a hurdle that you jump, and it's like any other hurdle that you jump. Once you've jumped it a few times, you're used to it.
yeah. I would imagine, like, is there software for doing CITES forms yet? Like, where it'll kind of like bang out the fields for you and make it and streamline it a
No,
little bit.
it's an online fill out online PDF kind of thing. It's
Mm-hmm.
like 2008 technology,
Uh-huh.
but it's not hard. At least in Canada, it's really easy to get a CITES permit. It just involves waiting. The United States is a different story. It's such a ridiculous hoop to go through to get a CITES permit in the States. It's totally doable, but it's just it takes a very very long time. And in Canada, they've made it as easy as possible, but it's still a form that has to be entered into a computer by a human being, and there's a backlog, and it takes a long time to get it done.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, Mark, I'm gonna let you get back to the Luthen, and I want to say thanks for hanging out and answering everybody's questions. And I look forward to getting a shop tour interview with you here pretty soon, and going
Yeah,
through the shop and looking at some stuff because I think it getting a couple luthiers gabbing about how things are set up in a shop I think is always
oh yeah, that'd be great. I'll be all over that.
we'll see if we can make my wife's eyes glaze over.
Perfect. Well,
Uh,
thanks for having me, and I really appreciate it. Thanks to everyone who's been watching and sending your questions, and that's awesome. Thank you.
all right, take care, man.